class, it's Lauren Elizabeth with Lauren Elizabeth Animal Art, and I welcome you to another video in my brand new series called Leap Beyond Technique, helping you connect the dots in your animal art, connecting your story, the good and the ugly, with the best technique, the best color palette, and the right mindset, most importantly, to help you create authentic, unique, original art. So building off of what we talked about in the last video in this series, which I also have linked down below if you missed it, we're going to talk about some helpful tips and techniques for drawing. And then I'll show you with this swan painting example, how I move into the second phase of the creative process, which is now hatching the eggs. All right, guys, and the last thing I want to say before we get started is I have officially released my brand new Valentine's Day collection. It's called Precious Pink. I have a link down below to my website, which has all the original paintings and some of the merch, and then my prints you can all find on my Etsy shop. All right, guys, I hope you like it. Now let's get started. Again, I'll be sharing some really helpful tips and techniques that I've actually never shared before, showing you how I prepare my sketch and also my mind to help me best create that original painting. So I'll be showing you a quick drawing portion and then move into the painting portion for this swan piece. I'm creating a very rough outline sketch. I'm allowing those gaps, not drawing in every detail, to make room for creativity to reveal itself along the way when I'm painting. My goal is creating a nearly accurate rough sketch in the simplest way. When I make it too complex and when I get caught up on detail, I find that it limits my creativity because I'm forcing, squeezing, fighting for that control for every detail, and it squanders my creativity, especially when I'm painting. So when you're drawing, make room for whatever level of simplification works for you, but one way that I keep it simple is I start with a plus sign. I separate my canvas into 4 blocks, no more, no less, as well as my reference photo, and I'm only working on 1 to 2 blocks at a time. Now, I'm not trying to create a sloppy sketch when I say a rough sketch. I'm trying to make it nearly accurate. I treat the drawing as its own standalone work of art, but also a rough guideline for the painting that can be adjusted with paint later. And it's acrylic paint. You can paint over any mistakes you make and try again. Now, being able to draw is never this born talent, but a skill you develop. So guess what? Anything can be drawn with just 2 simple things, lines and circles. So if you can draw a line, and if you can draw a circle, you can draw anything. And if you notice here, I'm not drawing this perfect circle or perfect oval the first time I attempt it. It's when I create more and more passes, more and more lines that accumulate. It's multiple lines placed closely together with very little amount of pressure on my pencil that creates that nearly accurate oval or circle. Now, when drawing animals, especially birds with their long tube-like necks, I use what's called an axis line that runs straight through something in order to show the direction and movement of something. So for that swan neck, I can create a line in the center and then create parallel curved lines around that line. And when I'm creating those long curved lines, I'm not afraid to have gaps in between those lines or angles that help me create that nice perfect curve. I'm taking the main ideas in my head, all the inspiration and this reference photo, and testing out these ideas, starting with this drawing process. And this is the second stage of the creative process, called hatching the eggs. So you're taking all those ideas and seeing which ones works. Right, so once I draw as much as I need and no more, then I start painting. Now, this is really important. This is how I combat the fear at the beginning of the painting process. I feel very nervous when I'm drawing, but definitely feeling it when I'm painting because I don't know how it's going to turn out. So I let my passion and my curiosity guide me. Now, here's my passion talking. It's saying, I just love this light glowing around these swans. I also love the position of these swans, that feeling of embrace, that love, that warmth, that closeness that I really wanted to capture for this Valentine's Day collection. Passion is also saying it's excited by the colors. It's excited by the white snow and the pond in the background and how that adds to the brightness. My passion is revving me up for those pastel colors that I can add. The light pinks, the light violets, the light teals that I can add to the body and the neck. So that was passion. Now curiosity is asking this. Now, do I keep the background blue, or should I really go a little bit more of a navy blue with these branches and add those in behind, just like the reference photo? Or do I add some cool leaf designs or floral designs just at the top and then have the pond at the bottom? Lots of questions, but I keep interested and curious instead of afraid. Definitely still feel a little afraid, but I lean into that curiosity and I test out my ideas. Now for just the painting, I hatched 2 eggs. I didn't like that, so I'm painting over it and trying again with a different idea. A slightly different egg that'll be hatching now, not entirely different. So I'm painting over those branches, I'm painting over and making it a little bit of a darker blue. I need to let this dry so I can test up some darker and lighter colors, but I don't want too much mixing going on. So to keep that momentum and to continue with that inspiration, that passion and curiosity, I take this time to mix up the colors for the swans. I mix up a variety of pastel colors that I plan to add and some that I want to test out and see how it will work, possibly adding some flowers to the top above the swans. So in the last egg that I hatched, I liked adding that pond. I liked using that as kind of like a horizon line, but I didn't like how I was painting the branches and the trees, so I tested out a new egg. Curiosity is now asking, what would it look like if I created this neat linear tree design? Parallel lines with no branches and they're at different lengths. But what would be above them? What kind of design could I add? All right, I'm gonna let my mind think about that. I'm gonna allow that idea to come, to reveal itself along the way. But in the meantime, I'll work on the swan and see how that works over top and around those trees. Passion is saying, I like bending the rules. I don't like making things look perfectly realistic. I'm going to abstract this face and use violet instead of using black. Then curiosity speaks up and asks, well, what about that white area of the swan? You can't use blue. That's going to just be too much blue and you'll lose the background and the swans. What if you go with a yellow? I see some yellow in the colors of the reference photo. Add some oranges and yellows within a border of light blue and a much lighter blue than the medium value blue background. So let's hatch this egg and see what happens and how it plays into that tree background. But how can I nicely, smoothly transition colors from a yellow to a blue around the body? But what if I don't make the body blue? What if I make it violet and some blue? Or what if I add some teals? All right, I'm going to test it out and see what happens, but I don't really want to mix a green. If I mix a green, I want to keep it teal. I love the color teal more than I like just green. So if I mix that too much, I'll start making a green. So let that dry so that I can add a teal there later and start working on the other swan while that dries. Now, are you starting to see how I'm speaking with my passion and curiosity? I'm also saying lots of prayers so that the Lord can guide me and make this just glow. That's the goal. I want it to be glowing, loving, that feeling of embrace. So I'm repeating the same technique on the right swan as I did the left, but I'm testing out the idea now about a white border around the both of them, painting the colors within that border, even on the swan's back on that right swan. Now going into this piece, even before drawing or painting, I was pretty confident that egg would hatch, that it was going to be a good egg and not a bad egg that I would then feed. So that was just a handful of eggs, one of them, that I knew would work. Most often, the best eggs that I end up keeping and feeding come up along the way. It reveals itself as I paint. I put one piece in the puzzle and then I can see the next piece, and that leads to the next piece. The ugly phase, my friends, is a mystery. It's very unknown. It could be scary, and that's why so many creatives give up here. But this is where you cannot give up, because you have to take your one step for the next step to reveal itself. Yes, it can be very frustrating, and it can require many different attempts and going through lots of bad eggs until you get to that good one. But you just have to persist. You have to persevere. I've noticed that those bad eggs are never failures. They show me actually which path to take next. They redirect me to the right egg. Now here's me testing out the idea of making this body violet instead of a blue. That's also where I left gaps for where that light is hitting that left swan. And that led to the egg. What if I created a white ice design above the trees behind the swans? But then how would I join this ice to those parallel lines for the trees? I don't really like how chaotic those intersecting lines add or take away from this painting. I like having a bit of complexity and those unique designs, but I want to still keep it simple. So I'm going to see what I can turn this ice into, what kind of designs, maybe some floral designs, or maybe I'll try again with the branches. Let the creative process unfold. Let it be an exploration, an adventure. You need to keep an open mind the entire time and be open to the idea of trying again and again and again and again until you finally get it. You have to be so persistent. For me and my own personal creative process, I am just constantly inviting the Lord in, asking Him to guide me, asking Him to give me these ideas, these eggs, trusting that something will come up, something will reveal itself, that puzzle piece that I was looking for, and that leads to the next one, and then the next step. This is also what makes it so exciting, that I can partner with God in making this art, and that He chooses to use me to create these paintings. So I'm starting to see the light with this ice design above the swan's head. To continue with that feeling of embrace, I start to point these designs towards the swans, almost looking like it's pushing the swans together, like it's causing these swans to get closer. And then there's Mr. Curiosity tapping on my shoulder. What if you turn some of these ice designs into birds flying? And then some of those designs would also be leaves. I respond back with passion. Together we say we love the idea, and I love the feeling of freedom with the birds. But this area's a bit wet, so I'm going to work below it on the pond. Passion says that those reflections on the pond are just so beautiful. Let's continue that in our painting, bringing those parallel lines down. So once I complete that, I like that egg. I'm going to keep it. I really don't know what, though, to do with the area behind the swans underneath the beak. It almost looks like this gap, this heart-shaped gap. I want something special in there. I want it to mesh with the background, but also be its own unique design. So I play with the color white here. Not sure if I want to connect it with the swans, literally bringing that white into their body, or having it separate, or adding more leaves. This was the single most difficult area of this painting, the top area here, and how it joined with those trees and brought those swans together, not taking away from those swans, but adding to it. Now here's the very tricky part of the ugly phase. The ugly phase is when you've applied the underpainting and even a layer or two, but then when you're almost past that ugly phase, once you have all the white covered up and multiple layers. But there's a big but here, and it can be a real hurdle. You have not cracked the code yet. The end is still very blurry and uncertain, and you already have hatched many different eggs and tested them out. You have eggs that you started with that you hatched and you like them, you want to keep them, and now you're feeding them. And also lots of bad eggs that you had to paint over and try again with another egg. So how exactly do we get past this end phase of the ugly phase? How do we move past it? I'm going to share with you 5 different ways that you can do this. So first, we talked a little bit already about testing out all the eggs, seeing what works. Those ideas that you test out and experiment with that turn out to be a bad egg are never failures, but a redirection of where you're going in your painting. They show you what not to do, what doesn't work. You can even take little hints of that previous bad egg, parts of it, and test it out for the next egg. So you see, although it can be very frustrating, it's absolutely necessary to help you crack that code. So my first tip is don't be afraid to paint over those ideas that you test out. Be patient. Keep on experimenting. Keep on exploring. Like now, the upper part of this painting took me so many different tries. I just applied a light blue glaze over the top so that you can just barely see those white designs, and it nicely connects and fades that area at the top of the trees. So that's me taking white, my fluid titanium white by Golden Brand, mixing it with a heavy body sky blue, which is by Master's Touch, watering it down, adding lots of water to it, and then loading up my brush with that very thinned out paint and painting over the entire area. And I did a little bit of that again, but added more of my paint so it's a bit thicker right here where I'm trying to make it a bit darker. Now, what if you've been exploring and experimenting in this phase for quite a long time? Maybe an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or even 4 hours of testing out these ideas. You're probably pretty fatigued by now. You might have a foggy brain. It might be hard to focus. It's very understandable because it's been a while, and painting requires quite a lot of focus and energy, so it's time for a break. Here's the 3 different breaks that I recommend, okay? So the first one is to take a walk break. Go take a walk. Take a 10-minute or 15-minute, or heck, if you have the time, 20-minute walk to just reset your mind and your body. Another reset for the body and mind, which requires a bit more time if you have it. Like I said, this is if you have the time, is to take a quick cat nap or go that night, sleep on it, and then wake up with fresh eyes. Your brain is solving problems in your sleep. You will often wake up with ideas that you didn't even know you come up with, and it'll help you towards your painting. And that's exactly what happened with this painting. I actually woke up singing the song from Pocahontas. I'm not kidding, The Colors of the Wind. And if you remember in that movie, there's all these different shaped leaves blowing around Pocahontas. Well, that's what sparked the idea of having these different similar shaped leaves in this background, squeezed around these tiny little flying birds that you see that I've already started adding. I love that. And then you'll see I add floral designs that I just don't like. Those I did not want to keep, and so I painted over them. But after a good night's sleep, it came to me. It really came, and it helped me finally crack that code. And the third break that you can take to help you finally get past the end stage of the ugly phase is by working on a different project, working on a different painting, or even an entirely different medium. I also love to crochet. I crochet a lot of amigurumi. These are stuffed animals that I like to create for my children. I also love the medium Copic markers mixed with colored pencils, and then sometimes I'll add acrylic markers or even just acrylic paint over top. These are 2 mediums that I love doing when I'm stuck on a painting. All right, so my next tip has to do more with the mind and your attitude towards or your confidence as an artist. So are you open to trying something entirely new, like an entirely new technique or design that you've never attempted and you're a little nervous? Or are you staying within your comfort zone, testing out those kind of eggs that you've pretty much already tried before in other paintings that you know worked? Well, I say step further. Step out of that box you're putting yourself in. Try something entirely new that you've never attempted before. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it may turn out to be a bad egg. But as I talked about before, it's never a failure, these bad eggs. It's just a redirection. And this, my friends, is exactly how we can develop our style. By stepping out of that box, attempting these things that are completely out of our comfort zone, and it's sure is an opportunity to build our confidence as an artist. The greatest thing you can do for your creativity is to have a fresh mind and fresh body from a nap or a walk or getting inspiration from another project, and just being open to new possibilities, being free, allowing things to happen, not thinking so rigidly. Now here I'm painting before that good night's sleep that I got where I woke up with that Pocahontas song. So here's me still exploring and testing out ideas, but it's coming. Something is coming. Something wants to reveal itself, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. You'll see in a little bit my progression from here, where I add a rose design above the swan's heads, and I didn't like that, painted over it. Then I progressed to a daisy design, thought that was just too silly, didn't like it. Painted over that again, caused quite a lot of texture. I was a little nervous about that because it was getting so bumpy, but that's just a part of the process, so I allowed it to happen. And then finally, after a good night's sleep, that's where I start painting in some of those maple leaves, those simple looking almond-shaped leaves with dots all around the flying birds. My goodness, I counted over 15 eggs that I tried out in this upper background just to get to this point. So it took a lot of trial and error. But every idea that I tried out helped me for the next one. Every puzzle piece that I placed down, whether it fit or not, it helped me eventually get to the next puzzle piece, and then the next puzzle piece. And then finally, I was able to crack that code and move past that experimentation phase. Like I do this and all the other videos in this series, I want to give you an action step to help you push past those barriers, to help you further develop your style, get you to that right technique. In the last video's action step was to create a rough sketch, a rough drawing. Well, now that I've given you some helpful tips in drawing, you can further tweak your drawing if you need to, but now it's time to start painting. My challenge to you is to apply 1 to 3 new designs that you've never ever attempted before in a painting. Apply that to this piece. It's that certain technique or that certain way of painting, method of painting that artist does or that you've been thinking of doing. Now's the time to do it. Now, if you're entirely new to acrylic painting and or drawing, or you're just still really rusty when it comes to acrylic painting technique, I have what's called the Online Animal Art Masterclass. There, I share my pet portrait painting process, step by step, with tutorials that you can follow along to and paint along to. Now, if you're finding it very frustrating and difficult to paint animal fur, getting those lines thin enough, getting the colors right, the texture right, I share in depth my entire fur painting technique, my color methods, with an emphasis on pet fur. And if you're an artist that eventually wants to accept pet portrait commissions, part-time or even full-time, I have my pet portrait commission course going over my entire commission process. I even have a contract template that you can literally copy and download yourself for your own commissions. There, I also have my pricing guide where I share exactly how I price my pet portraits, even my original paintings. And if you're really struggling to get that life-giving color in your pet portraits or your wildlife paintings, I have what's called the Creative Color Guide, also in my masterclass, going over all my color methods and how you can apply it to your original paintings. So I have links to my online animal art masterclass down below. But guys, I really hope this video was helpful to you. I really hope you are able to do these action steps in each one of these videos. And if you missed a video in this series, I have links to this entire series down below in the description. I'll see you in the next video going over the 3rd stage in the creative process. Have a wonderful day. Bye.